Hi, I'm Dr. Gail Carson, and welcome to Mindset Matters. I am thrilled that you're here with me today because this is such an important subject for me, and I'd like to tell you why. I want to tell you how your mindset affects your life, and I want to tell you why this is important to me. All of my life, people have said to me, why are you so happy? And this is especially true in the last several years. They've come to me and said, you've been through so many things. Why are you always smiling? And I say, well, I have lost a husband, I've lost a son, I've had breast cancer 3 times, and I've had 16 surgeries. And so, of course, they expect me to be depressed and unhappy. But I say, you choose how you want to live your life. And I choose to live my life happily. Because what is the other choice? Do you go around with your head in the dumps all day? Do you go around saying, nothing's good that's happening to me? You're just keeping that negativity going. So I've come up with these 12 different shifts in thinking that help you to live a better and a more productive life. And that's why I'm excited that you're here with me, and I hope this will be as big a difference in your life as it has been in mine. So let's go with number 1. Number 1 is positive thinking. Now, I know that you have heard about this forever. And yes, positive thinking is very important because you're not only providing a positive look in your own life, but you're giving this look to everybody else. Positive thinking is about the best thing that you can do. You have 2 different ways of attracting people. You can either attract them with this positive energy, or you can repel them with a negative energy. Positive thinking does so much for your mind and your body. And it also shows externally. When you are positive, you're giving off vibrations that people see around you all of the time. So when I say positive thinking, some people call it mindset. Some people call it positive thinking. Some people say it's a reflection of how you look at life. Whatever you call it is not the important thing. The important thing is when things happen to you, do you think about it in a positive nature? Or do you automatically say, well, of course this happens to me. That's my luck. It always happens to me. I try to do things well. I try to be a good person. I try to treat people well. I try all these wonderful things, and bad things happen. Well, it's true. It's called life. I always say that life gives me at least 12 challenges a day. And if my day hasn't had 12 challenges, it hasn't been a complete day already. I know it's going to happen. However, how do I wake up? I wake up with a smile on my face, and I go to sleep with a smile on my face. Why? Because it allows me to live the rest of my day in a way that allows me to see these various things that are happening to me and deal with them in a positive way. So positive thinking is not easy, but it's a necessity. So I want you to start to catch yourself now when you hear yourself saying, well, this always happens to me, or, well, I just knew it was going to be that way, or what chance do I really have, or any of the things that you very often say to yourself, which we call self-talk. I want you to think about it because positive thinking is the thing that will keep you going and keep you on track. It's not easy, but it is possible. So number 2 is make sure that you are always smiling. Smiling is a key point to all that you do. I remember when I was a little girl and I was going downtown with my mother on a bus, and we got off the bus and a man came up to us, and in those days you could have a man come up to you and you wouldn't be scared. And he said, I just had to come up and say hello because you just have this most beautiful smile on your face. And my mother simply said, thank you, and we went on with our day. But that impressed me. I remember that. I think I was maybe 5 years old, and I remember that. And one of the things that people always say about me is that I'm always smiling. And that's probably true. I never even realized that I'm doing it. But I know that I do smile a lot. But that's a natural feeling for me. And it isn't phony, and you don't put this pretentious smile on your face. Hopefully you're really enjoying yourself and you're enjoying your day and you're enjoying the people who are around you. But smiling is contagious. It's very hard to be angry when you're smiling. It's very hard to grit your teeth when you're smiling. It is very hard to be upset with someone when you're smiling. So if you can train yourself to smile and have a really gregarious and sincere smile, it's going to make a whole difference in your world. Smiling is one of the most important things that you can do. And it also makes you feel good. All of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today, they're all connected. If you do one, it helps the other. And if you do the next, it helps the next one. All of these are very important. So when I talk to you about smiling, I really mean it. Some people, they have this ferocious look on their face. There are some people that you can look at and you just say, I know this person's angry. I know this person's mad. I know this person's upset. And this doesn't mean that you're not considered serious or that you can't take on serious subjects. But when people meet you and they greet you, and especially if you ever go to a networking event, do you think anybody's really going to come up to you if you have a grimace on your face? They're only going to come up to you if you're smiling. You have to look welcoming. You have to look as if you are really desirous to know who they are. I know that when I go to networking events, very often people will shoot my picture along with a group of other people to put in whatever publication they have. But usually they say, well, I just liked your smile. So smiling is contagious. Smiling is important, and smiling is something that you really need to do. Now, the third point. This is so important. I can't tell you how important this is. Be careful, because 5 minutes of negative thinking takes the body 24 hours to recover from. Think about that. Now think about the times you've thought negative thoughts. It's taken you a whole day to get back on track. And then, of course, you do other things. What you do is when something happens to you and it's negative, you go around telling everybody. You tell everybody in the world, you can't believe what happened to me. You can't believe what happened to me. You can't believe what happened to me. And guess what? None of those people can do anything about it for you. You very often do not complain to the person who caused it, or to the person who can change it, or the person who can make it better. So when we talk about negative thinking, think about that. If it takes you 24 hours to recover from, and I know there are some of you out there that are thinking about this right now, and you remember how exhausted you feel by the time you finish that negative thought, because it takes so much to recover from that. So when we say 5 minutes of negative thinking takes the body 24 hours to recover from, it is true. And you have to think about that. And I want you to really think about how many times in a day you think negative thoughts. Now, some of them are said to you, and you absorb them, and they become negative for you. And then there are others that you think of for yourself. You just, you start thinking about, oh, well, this isn't going to work, and this one's not going to call me, and I didn't get this job, and there's too much competition, and you just go on and on with all of the scenarios, which are not necessarily the things that are going to make a difference for you. So think about this, because when I talk about negative thinking, it is so important for you to forget about doing it, because negative thinking will not do you any good, and it just robs you of any energy or any compassion or any positive thoughts that you have for that day. So I don't want you to waste a minute of 24 hours. 24 hours is very crucial for all of us. So think about that, because that 5 minutes of negative thinking is just going to tear you apart. Let's go on to number 4. Now, some of this negative thinking comes from abrasive incidents. Now, think about this. We all experience, now this is done through stress studies, we all experience 100 abrasive incidents a day. That's 3,000 a month. Now think about this. It could be you got up late. The alarm didn't go off, whatever it was, you put it on the snooze button and you stayed in bed. It could be that you went to the refrigerator to get something to eat and somebody ate it before you got there. It could be you're going to drive your car, and then what happens is you go out, somebody drove your car, they didn't put gas in it, you got to stop at a gas station or else you're going to run out of gas. I mean, there are so many things. You get to work, somebody didn't show up today and it's going to put extra pressure on you. It could be you were going to go to lunch with someone and you have to stay and work through lunch because you didn't get anything done in the morning that you should have done because you had so many interruptions. I mean, there are all kinds of things that happen to you. I call those abrasive incidents things that go, you know, when you think of something that goes, that's an abrasive incident. Well, 100 of those happen in a day. It could be hitting all the red lights on the way to work. It could be a traffic accident, so you're delayed because it's taking you twice as long to get where you need to go. All of those things are abrasive incidents. And how you deal with those are very important. But I guarantee you they're going to happen. It's just the way it is. Now, I have a bunch of animals, and I know the first thing I do when I get up, I get up with my smile, and I take a deep breath, and I greet my animals. I know that when I go out into my living room or anywhere else, there could be a lot of surprises waiting for me. I don't have my dog anymore. Now I just have my cats. But, I mean, you know, the dog, I used to have to worry about, you know, where she might be going. She was trained on wee-wee pads, but that was an abrasive incident. I had to pick up the wee-wee pads, change them. Now I have to do, of course, the kitty litter, and sometimes the cats get cat balls, you know, and they throw up. It has to be cleaned up. I haven't even started my day yet. I haven't even started breakfast yet. That's what I start off with in the morning. That's an abrasive incident. But do I love my animals? You bet. Am I going to get rid of my animals? No. So what I'm saying is people don't mean to be abrasive necessarily. Things are not put there to get you upset. No one intended to have an accident on the highway this morning, but it's going to happen. So you need to be prepared because there's going to be 100 of them every single day. You get through your day, you come home at night, the kids may have problems, you might not be able to get to the grocery store, maybe depending on where you live, it might be snowing, it might be ice, could be all kinds of different things. But I want you to know the abrasive incidents are coming, and you need to be aware of them, you need to be prepared for them, they are going to happen. The next thing we talk about is being able to say, I love you to you. Now, this is so important. I have to credit my mom for this. My mom lived till she was 99 and a half, and she was always spouting words of wisdom. And when people ask me who was my greatest mentor, I have to say it was my mom. It was just the way I was raised, the things she taught me. And one of the things she said to me was, you have to be able to look in the mirror and say, not only I love you, but you also have to be able to say, I like you. I like you and I love you. This is not conceited. This is not being, you know, a kind of person who worships themselves. This is someone who says, you know, you're a pretty good human being. You treat people well. You try to do the best job you can. You are trying to make a difference in the world. You want to have an impact. You want to leave a legacy. There's a lot of things you want to do. And in order to do those things, you have to love yourself. Because until you love yourself, you can't love anybody else. So it's so key and so important for you to be able to say that. So I want you to try that. I want you to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And there is nothing wrong with that. Now, I will tell you, some people have trouble saying I love you, not only to themselves, but to other people as well. And one of the things that I have learned, and I'm so happy I learned this, because without it, I think I would be living a much heavier life. And that is the one thing I have learned, because I can say I love you, is forgiveness. Forgiveness was very difficult for me. I used to, when somebody really did something horrible to me, I would harbor this resentment, and I would go along with this little thing on my shoulder, and I would say, wow, you know, why did they do that to me? I don't deserve that, all of that kind of thing. Once I learned to forgive, then I could say I love you to a lot of other people. Now, I do tell you that I do say that to people. I say, not only I like you, but I love you. And I say it all the time to my cats. I always say I love you to my cats. I must say it 20 times a day to them. But most important is being able to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And if you can't say that, then something is wrong. Something is wrong internally with you. And you need to look at that, because you should be able to like who you are and love who you are. And that is a big part of mindset. And it's a big part of positive thinking, and a big part of everything that we have talked to about up to this point. The next thing that I want to talk about are coping mechanisms. Now, coping mechanisms are different things for different people. For me, well, there you have a picture you see of this beautiful kitty. Part of coping mechanisms for me are my animals. I talk to them. I have to tell you, I pet every animal I see walking in the street. I live in a building that has lots of pets, and I pet every dog that comes in and out of the elevator. On my way to the gym this morning in the building, there were a couple of dogs. I had to stop and pet them. And my sister always teases me. My sister says it takes 45 minutes to do a walk, except when I'm with Gail. And then it takes me an hour and a half because she's stopping to pet every animal that she sees. So a coping mechanism for me are animals. I just adore them and I pet them. And at night, after a long day of hard work, and remember those abrasive incidents and everything else, I will get into bed. I will turn on the TV. Some people say, don't watch TV, it's terrible. I like to watch TV at night. It relaxes me, and I go to sleep very easily and very comfortably. And my cats get on my lap. It's very cute because they fight for position. And I sit there and I pet them and I watch TV and I completely zone out, and I have a wonderful evening. And then when I go to sleep, which is usually by 11 o'clock every night, I have my coping mechanisms with my cats. However, I do have some other ones. One of them is exercise. I do like to exercise, and I make sure I do something every day. And believe me when I tell you, I have lots of aches and pains. I have lots of scar tissue from all the surgeries. I have bad knees. I have a bad back. It's very difficult for me to do exercise the way I used to do it years and years and years ago, but I do it because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be moving. So that's, again, part of positive thinking. It's also part of, all those abrasive incidents that happen. But exercise is another thing for me. One more coping mechanism for me is water. Water to look at. I have to say that in Miami Beach and in San Diego, I live where I can see the water, and I love the water. I can watch the boats and so forth. However, in Palm Springs, I see the mountains. There's no water there, just the mountains. But I can tell you that water has a big impact on my life. For years and years and years, I just swam all the time. I water skied. My husband and the family and I would go out in our boats, and we would just have a wonderful time. I think from the time that my youngest, who is now 51, from the time that my youngest was a baby in a playpen, we would take the boat out. It was the funniest thing you ever saw. You talk about abrasive incidents. I used to have a red Volkswagen Beetle. And what we would do is we'd tie on the boat to the back, and we'd put the luncheon baskets and all of that in the back of the boat. That's where, so we knew they'd stay there and they wouldn't pop out. Well, we'd open the sunroof, and I'd put the two older kids in the back seat, and the skis would be up through the sunroof, and then the playpen would be in back of the skis. So the kids were jammed in the back. I had the baby in front seat with me on my lap, because those were the days before car seats. They didn't have car seats then. And off we go to the beach, and we'd be there all day swimming and playing and so forth, and boating and water skiing, and then we'd put everybody back together in the car and come back. The water was a big place for me to relax. Even though we went through all of that on a Sunday, for example, it was still a coping mechanism for me. So whatever those are for you, it could be talking to a friend, it could be meditation, it could be being just quiet in a room, it could be whatever it is for you. Whatever it is, a coping mechanism, the thing that lets you get through your day, that makes you feel good, that calms you down, those are coping mechanisms. Hopefully it's not eating a lot of ice cream or cookies or things like that. But whatever that means for you, I want you to think about those because it makes a big, big difference for you. So a coping mechanism is something that you personally experience that allows you to relax, to zone out, to say all is right with the world, and to keep going. Well, after coping mechanisms comes stress. Now, I've got to really talk to you about stress because a lot of people think stress comes from a different place than it does. Stress comes from high demand and low control. When you are asked to do something that you have no control over, don't know how to do, don't want to do, wondering why you were asked to do it, that's high demand and low control. You can be in all kinds of stressful situations for other people, but as long as you can control it, then it's not stressful to you. So the amount of wear and tear on your body is stress. And that comes from high demand and low control. Now, too much stress results in burnout. And burnout comes because you keep doing this over and over and over again, things that you don't want to do, and so forth. Now, the whole point about stress is you can accept it or not. For example, there are certain things. I remember I used to be on the road 50 weeks a year. I would leave my house on a Sunday or Monday and come back on a Friday. And I was usually in a different city every day speaking or consulting. Well, and this was in the good days of flying, not now what you go through now. So I found that there were three things I could not control. Number one, I did not control the airlines. They didn't fly when I wanted to, and if there was weather or mechanical, I was stuck. There was nothing I could do. I could scream, I could yell, I could carry on, I could make everybody upset, mostly myself, or I could deal with it. So how I dealt with it, and one of my coping mechanisms for that, was that's when I read. I used to take my reading with me. That's when I wrote. I wrote a lot of articles and a lot of books while I was sitting in the terminal. And that's how I dealt with it because there was nothing I could do. I could only go when the plane flew. Now, sometimes I had other choices. Sometimes I took a Greyhound bus. Sometimes I rented a cab. Sometimes I rented a car. Just depended on what I needed to do. But again, that was one of the things that in traveling that I had to be concerned about. I sometimes got into a hotel so late, they told me they didn't have a room for me. And I had to be up at 6 or 7 in the morning to get my room straight so that I could begin my seminars at 9 o'clock. Well, let me tell you, I could again either scream and yell or be calm about it. And I will tell you what I did in one circumstance, which I know probably many of you would not do, but I did do it. I said, well, I had a guaranteed reservation, and here it is. This is my confirmation number. And I'm just going to go to sleep in your lobby until you find me a room, because they always have a room. They always have some kind of a room. And I proceeded to lie down on a couch with my suitcase right near me, and you would not believe, within like a minute, they had a room for me. So there are ways to deal with all of these things. And it's how you approach everything that makes a difference. But the key is, yes, there's good stress. And we talk about the good stress as, you know, the instances of when a mom picks up a car if something has happened to her child underneath it, or running for something when she never ran before in her life because it protected her child. Well, there's good stress that produces the kind of results you want. And then there's the bad stress. And that's what, again, takes the energy out of you. So when we talk about stress, remember, it's high demand and low control. When you have no control over what's going on, that's where stress results. When you can deal with it, when you can fix it, when it's of your own making, that is stress that should not tear you down. But just remember, too much stress results in burnout. I'm always amazed when I hear stories of single moms who, for example, they work 2 jobs and they have to worry about, taking care of their kids or getting them in after school care and doing their homework with them. And they don't make a lot of money and they can't afford a nanny. And they get these kids raised well. They get their kids raised happily. They get their kids raised to be good citizens. I think they are the heroes and the heroines, truthfully, of our society, because to me, that's a difficult thing to do. So when we talk about stress, it can be in all situations, all kind of circumstances, but the important thing is to understand that too much stress results in burnout. Stress comes from high demand and low control, and we all have instances of stress in our life. Let's move on now. What do you control? Well, that's our next subject. What do you control? Well, when it comes down to it, maybe we control very little. But what do you control? For example, you do control, how your car functions. Supposing you need tires for your car, but you keep putting it off and you keep putting it off and you keep putting it off. Guess what? The first time you get your flat, you're going to get new tires. But you could have controlled that. You could have gone and got the tires when you needed them, and you wouldn't have had that problem. Or someone who says, I really have to get gas. I have to get gas. And then you're down to the fumes and you run out of gas. Again, remember I told you about my red VW? Well, my husband occasionally drove this car, but didn't tell me when it ran out of gas. It was the kind of Volkswagen, I don't know what they are now, but at that time, there was a little switch on the floor that when you turned it, it gave you like an extra gallon of gas. But it used to let you know when you needed to do that. Well, I'm just driving down I-95, coming back from teaching classes, because this is when I owned a chain of career schools, and I was teaching classes, and I was coming back, and the car goes put, 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 and I very gingerly, put my foot on the little thing to turn the knob to give me an extra gallon of gas so I can get to a gas station. And it was already down. He had flipped it, never told me. And of course, there I was stuck on the side of the I-95 and I didn't have any gas. And you talk about some choice thoughts at that particular point. I had them, I have to tell you that. However, luckily, and again, those were the days when you could do this. Someone stopped, they took me to a gas station, we got gas and brought it back, and he filled the tank for me, and off I went. And then, of course, I had a few choice words for my husband when I got home. But, I mean, I didn't control that. I probably should have looked at that little switch, but since I never even have had anything like that happen to me, that was a shocker to me. So it's, what do you really control? Do you control deadlines? Do you get deadlines from your clients? Do you get deadlines from yourself? Do you get deadlines from your staff? There are all kinds of different deadlines. We have deadlines for taxes. We have deadlines for when specific forms have to be filled out. We have deadlines for when, and think about this. Remember the days when you were in school and you had this term paper and you had, 6 weeks, sometimes more than that, to do your term paper. And the night before it was due, oh, my paper's due. I've got to work all night at this. Who did that? You did that to yourself. So when you think about control, what do you really control? And who do you control? And only those things that you control can be changed. The things that you do not control cannot be changed. So why worry about them? We worry about so many things that we have no say in, that we have no control over. And there are so many things that we worry about that never happen. I mean, we have enough things that happen to us for sure. Why worry about things that are never going to happen? And yet, I think in studies, it's been proven that like 96% of what we worry about doesn't happen. Only 4% of what we worry about really happens. So it's silly to be wasting time, energy, our mindset, and everything else on it. So ask yourself, what do I control? Those things that I control, I want to do the very best at. those things that I control, I want to make sure I have set up processes for. Those things that I control may have an impact on other people's lives. So we have to think about that. We have to think about what it is I control and what I don't. And very often, just like the airplane, I didn't control that. As a matter of fact, I was just in a situation where I got snowed in, and I had to, I think I was routed 4 different ways to get home before I actually did get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. However, even the pilot, we had to wait an hour for the pilot because the pilot was circling because he couldn't land because of the weather, but we had to wait for him to land before he could get to our plane to help us take off. And think how many times that happens and the pilots have flown too many hours and they can't get to our plane, and there we're stuck for the next flight out if we can even get on that. That's something we don't control. So the whole point of this particular part of your mindset is don't worry about things that you cannot control. You just add to your stress, you add to your anger, you add to something else to worry about, and you can't do anything about it. So control is something you need to think about. What do you control and what don't you control? The next thing, and this is, I think, such a big key, I want to talk about negative withdrawal. Negative withdrawal is something that people don't really think about. But according, again, to psychologists, for every negative withdrawal that you take out of your bank account, your emotional bank account, you have to put in 4 to 5 to 6 positive deposits. Remember when I talked to you about the abrasive incidents, and I talked to you about the negative thinking and all of that? Think about this. If you're taking a negative withdrawal out, why did this happen to me? I can't believe she did this to me. I was so good to her. I can't believe this happened. That's a negative withdrawal. Now you've got to put in 4, 5, or 6 positive deposits to counteract that. And some people just can't think positively, which is why I started off with positive thinking, because that's such an important part of who you are and who you become and how you live your life and how your mindset works. So if you don't have positive thinking, how on earth are you going to get through this? Because you're going to be taking negative withdrawals out all the time because of these abrasive incidents that happen to you. So when you think about this, what is it that you can do to put in some positive emotional deposits? I'll tell you some of the things that I do. Number 1, I call a friend. I call somebody that I haven't spoken to, and I try to give them some sort of cheer or good news or a backup or something that will do something for them. That's a positive deposit. I might go to an employee, or I might go to someone who is working within my company and say, okay, this is what I've done for you, or this is what I'd like to do for you. Or look, take an hour or 2 off today because I know you need it. That's a positive deposit. It could be, doing something with my pets. It could be, taking off maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes to play with them. That's a positive deposit. There's all kinds of different things you can do. We don't do them. We don't do them because we're rushed from one task to another task to another task to another task. We don't take the time, as the perennial saying goes, to smell the roses. So positive deposits are not as easy as they sound, even though they are easy. They're easy to do. We just don't think of them. But when you think about, gosh, I took away this one withdrawal, this negative energy thing, and I've got to put in 4, 5, 6 positive deposits, that can make all the difference in the world. So when we say, it takes 5, 6 positive deposits against one negative withdrawal, maybe you'll think about this now, because we do so much of this to ourselves. I can't tell you how much of this we do to ourselves. And people aren't as bad as we think they are. We do a lot of this to ourselves. And that's why, you know, when I said mindset matters, it really does matter, because how you think, how you live your life, how you do your day, how you practice what you preach, how you do all of these things have a big impact on how you as a person are to the rest of the world. So that's your negative withdrawal. Let's move on to what I call feisty spirit. And I have to tell you, I have met more women over 50 who are the feistiest people you'd ever want to meet. I meet them at the gym. I meet them traveling. I meet them when I go to various events. It's just amazing to me. What I mean by a feisty spirit is they're willing to try new things. They're willing to do new changes in their life. They're willing to go somewhere that they've never gone before. I can't tell you. I just can't tell you how important having a feisty spirit is. Now, I had someone say to me, just a day or two ago, you know, it's so nice to meet someone of your age. I am 78 years old. It's so nice to meet someone of your age who is so active and so busy and learning new things. I come into contact with so many people who are couch potatoes. They sit with their little clickers on the couch and just watch TV all day and all night. Well, I don't think, whatever age you are, and I've met people in their 90s that are absolutely amazing. You know, we can look at people like Colonel Sanders, who you've heard all about, who didn't really strike it rich till he was in his late 60s because he went to all these people who weren't interested in his particular formula, and then when he finally hit it big, he was in his late 60s. Look at Grandma Moses, who didn't start painting, and she was, into her late 70s, 80s, 90s. I have a friend of mine who is an artist. She's in the Guinness Book of Records. She is in her 90s, and she's still teaching people to paint. These are feisty spirits. These are people who are making a difference. These are not people who decided, gee, I'm just going to get to this age, retire, and that's it. Now, of course, I know that's not everybody, and I realize that there are people who really like to retire so they can travel and do all the things like, in fact, people say to me all the time, why don't you retire? And I say, retire to what? And they say, well, to do all the things you want to do. And I say, well, I do all the things I want to do anyway. So why should I retire when I love what I do? So I think it's a matter of this little feistiness that you have, this little extra little gumption that you have that makes all the difference. And especially because that increases, again, the endorphins in your body and your smile and your positive thinking and your positive emotional deposits. All these things are woven together and tied together. So it's so important that you do this. And it's just one of those things that I think is something that you should strive for. As a matter of fact, we have it via the insurance that I belong to, sends a nurse every year to visit you to check on your medications and to, check on how you are. And she always comes, and I've had the same one now for 3 years in a row. And she comes and she says, okay, take out all your medications. So I take out my 2 medications and I put them down. She says, where are the rest? And I say, well, this is all I take. I take a lot of herbs, by the way, and I take a lot of vitamins, but I only take 2 medications. One is for my cancer, and one is for cholesterol. And even though I may eat well, my whole family has high cholesterol. So, but my good cholesterol is good. It counteracts the high cholesterol because of my exercise. So because of that, it balances out. Anyway, she says, I went to somebody, last time she was here, she said, I went to somebody and I never even got in the door. He opened the door and I called 911. That's how bad he looked. And she said, you're the only one I go to that is on such few medications. Now, mind you, I have all kinds of things wrong with me, but I keep going. And I think that all the things that I do in a day make the difference in allowing me to keep on. And again, this all goes back to mindset. So I want to say to you, when we talk about this feistiness, I hope you all Try something you haven't tried before. Do something you've never done before. Go to an event you've never gone to before. When you go on a vacation, try someplace you've never been before. Make a new friend in an area you never thought you would before. There's just all kinds of things that you can do as a person who's got a feisty spirit and a feisty attitude that makes all the difference in the world. So feistiness is a positive thing. When somebody says, aren't you a little feisty? Say, yes, I am, and be proud of it, because I think it makes a tremendous difference. Well, this comes down to our next slide, which is energy. Now, I will tell you that's the one thing that I always get a comment on. People always say to me, I wish I had your energy. And I have to tell you, my son, who I told you is 51, he said to me, Mom, I don't have your energy. I could never do what you do. And he's a bodybuilder. I mean, he works out all the time, but he doesn't have my energy. And I'm not sure where it comes from. I have to be honest in telling you that. I've always had a lot of energy. I always did many things at one time. In high school, I got through in 3 years, and I gave a concert on the piano, and I sang and I danced with a partner on stage. And when I was in college, I got through in 3 years, and was always, I worked, I was teaching modeling, and I was working all the time, and I was in all the musicals, and I played the piano for the choir. And then when I got my doctorate, I had my business and everything. I mean, I've always done 2, 3, 4 things at one time, but that's the energy that I have. And I think the energy comes from the very first thing I told you, positive thinking. It comes from the title of this program, Mindset Matters. It comes from all the things we've talked about, not having a reaction to all the abrasive incidents that happen in your day. It happens from smiling and not being gloomy about everything. It comes from knowing what I do control and what I don't control. It comes from having great coping mechanisms. So it comes from everything we've talked about so far. But energy is key. And I think energy comes from exercise. I have to say that. I do think you should exercise. Now, you sure don't have to do what I do. I do a lot of exercise. But I will tell you, I'm aging. My bones are aging. Where I used to work out with 8 and 10 pound weights, I now work out with 3 and 5 pound weights. Where I used to be able to do the push-ups and all those kinds of sit-ups, because I've had 16 surgeries on my chest and I have no chest muscles, because I've had a double mastectomy and I have no chest muscles at all. I do my own push-ups on a bike handles or the Smith machine, but not on the floor. I can only do crunches to a certain point. But what I do gives me energy, again, because it produces endorphins and all the other things that, we've talked about and so forth. But I want you to know, whether you do yoga, whether you do swimming, whether you do Pilates, Tai Chi, whether you do whatever, whatever it is, whether you're doing weight-bearing exercise, which I believe everybody should be doing because that strengthens your bones. And I do have to tell you, my bone density is better now than it was 20 years ago. Now, they do adjust it as you age, but my bone density is very good. Whatever you do, it's important. I don't care if you ride a bike, you can do the elliptical machine, you can do the treadmill, you can do whatever it is you want to do, but you've got to do something. All of that produces energy. And all that energy, again, goes into the smile, the greeting of people, the positive thinking, the coping mechanisms, handling the stress that happens to you, all of that. So energy is so key. And when I say, what is the first thing that you notice about me? I've asked, I don't know, hundreds of people this, or even look at the evaluations when I do a speech, and I'll say, put down the things that you notice about me. How can I improve? That kind of thing. They always say energy and enthusiasm. Those two things come out in every single thing I do. Energy and enthusiasm. And if people can say you're enthusiastic, if people can say you're energetic, I feel your energy, it makes a difference. Now, I know that a lot of healers and a lot of people who are in the healing profession will talk about that energy aura around you. When you walk into a room, that feeling that you give off. That's great. I think that's great. If you can give off that aura. I mean, I do know people when they walk into a room, I mean, they just bring this light and energy with them. And I say, oh my gosh, I wish I could be like that. I'm too hyper for that. But they just kind of walk into a room and it's almost like an angel is floating by. I think it's fantastic. That's a different kind of energy, but it's still energy. So my energy is a little more hyper and their energy is a little more subtle. But energy is a key to, again, how your mindset is. So think about that. The last one I really want to talk about is a sense of humor. Being able to laugh at yourself, being able to laugh at somebody else is not good. Being able to laugh with somebody else is good. Being able to laugh at yourself is key, because we all do dumb, stupid things. So when you can have a sense of humor, in fact, that's the one thing I must tell you about my husband that I loved about him, was that I always said he should be a plant in an audience, because he would watch a movie or he would watch a TV show and he would be hysterical. And I would say, you should be a plant in one of these audiences, because he just laughed so much and he had a wonderful sense of humor. And I have to tell you, that is a part of a mindset. People enjoy people with a sense of humor. And so, in fact, when people say to me, oh, what kind of man are you looking for now, Gail? I say, I'm really not looking for a man, but if I were, there were 3 characteristics he'd have to have. Number 1, he could not smoke. Number 2, he'd have to love animals. And 3rd, he'd have to have a sense of humor. So a sense of humor is key, because it allows you to get along with everybody. It allows you to fit into a crowd. It allows you to be able to be one of the people that people like to be around. It allows you to see the better side of things. It allows you to be a part of the team, part of the gang, part of the, the people that are surrounding you. A sense of humor, and this is not a false sense of humor. This is a sense of humor that's really sincere and deep, is a key. And I'm sure you know people who laugh, who enjoy laughing, who have a wonderful time when they go somewhere, and they do have a wonderful sense of humor. Those people are rare, and they're wonderful. So if you can have that sense of humor, that's a key to everything. Being able to look, of course, having a sense of humor allows you also to look at the positive side of things. So it's, again, a key to all of the things that we're talking about here. So I want to recap all of this, because I want to make sure that we're talking about and you remember the things that we've said, because the title of this program is Mindset Matters. And I cannot tell you how important this is to me. Mindset does matter. It sets the tone for your day. It sets the tone for how you live your life. It sets the tone for how you think mentally. It sets the tone for how you feel physically. And it is definitely sets the tone for you emotionally. So all the things that go into mindset are so important, because that sets who you are, no matter what your circumstances are, whether you love the job you're in or you don't, whether you are wealthy or you're not, whether you feel good about yourself or you don't. All of that is a part of mindset. So I want to go through these again just to make sure that you're with me on all of this. Number 1, positive thinking. You must think positively, because that sets you up for your day. It allows you to look at things on the bright side rather than on the gloomy side. So positive thinking, the key. Number 2, smile. You have to smile. Smiling makes you feel good. You cannot grimace. You cannot grit your teeth. You cannot feel unhappy when you're smiling. And this is not a false smile, like, no, it's a real, genuine smile. Number 3, remember that 5 minutes of negative thinking takes the body 24 hours to recover from. Who has an extra 24 hours? I know you don't. I know I don't. So think about that. 5 minutes, negative thinking, 24 hours to recover from. Next are your abrasive incidents. You're going to have 100 of them a day, and they come in all sizes, shapes, and people. And because there are people that you work with that give you abrasive incidents, okay? But that translates to 3,000 a month. Think about that. That's a lot of stress on your body. The next one is being able to say, I love you to you. Like who you are as a person, love who you are as a person. It will be the best feeling you will ever have. Then, what are your coping mechanisms? I hope they're not drugs. I hope they're not alcohol. I hope they're the good things like exercise or good friends or a confidant or, like for me, pets or the water or exercise, something like that. But whatever your coping mechanisms are, again, it could be meditation. It could be just being quiet. It could be just a whole lot of things. But you need to have coping mechanisms of some sort. And then know where your stress comes from. Remember, stress comes from high demand and low control. When you are asked to do something over which you have no say at all, and too much stress results in burnout, and burnout can get you sick. So be careful of that and think about it, and remember who, and this is a key thing. I didn't really talk about this, but I do want to mention this. Think about who your stressors are. I always tell people, you know, when you get that feeling, you know, I talked about it with the abrasive incidents, that when someone comes in and you get that, that's a stressor. So start writing those down. And what will happen is you're going to find out it's not a lot of people who stress you. It's the same people who stress you all the time. And it's the same circumstances that stress you all the time. So try to control those circumstances and control those people. Try not to be with them as much as you can. Try not to put yourself in the circumstances like that. It will make a big difference. So that is stress that you have to worry about. The next is, again, what do you control and what don't you control? Don't get upset when the plane doesn't fly, or don't get upset when, you know, they don't have what you want at the supermarket, or don't get upset, you know, what do you control? That's what you have to look at. Remember that one negative withdrawal takes 4 to 5 to 6 positive deposits, emotional deposits, to counteract that. So make sure you're trying to put as many good things into your bank account as you possibly can. And then have that feisty spirit and attitude. You know, have that little devil may care. I think one of the ways that we look at that, if you remember Betty White was one of my spunky old broads of the year. I mean, she's got that feistiness. She's always got that little, you know, little wink in her eye. That's feistiness. And of course, energy. The energy that you exude. It can be a calm energy. It can be a more hyper, exciting energy. But the energy that you exude is what gets across to people. So that's why it's part of this mindset. And then lastly, of course, be aware of your sense of humor. Your sense of humor is so important. When we think about laughter, in fact, I have to tell you something. I am not a fan of real heavy drama or film. I know it's artistically important, and I know that they've won many an award, an Oscar, and so forth and so on. But I have to tell you, when I watch a movie, I want to be entertained. I think all day. I don't want to think when I'm watching a film. So I really do go for the lighter films. And sometimes I amaze myself that I'm laughing out loud. I always say, why am I doing that? But I'm glad I do that. That says I do have a sense of humor. So, and it's interesting, even when I speak, and I don't really think I'm a humorist or a funny person, people will always say, we love your sense of humor. And I don't even know that I'm doing it, but I'm doing it, I guess, when I'm telling my stories. So all of those things, these 12 different factors go into your mindset. And when I talk about them, I really believe in them. I practice them. I want you to practice them too, because I think it's going to make such a difference in your life. And since I know that many of you are searching for something else in your life, you won't get it if your mind is not there properly. So mindset is key to getting what you want out of life, finding the person that you're looking for, doing the job that you are meant to do, living the life that you want to live, whatever it is that you're doing. Mindset is a part of this, and it's a key. and they've proven it in all kinds of different areas. And athletes have found this to be true, that if they don't go in to their sport with the right mindset, they don't win. So mindset is key. I hope this has been helpful for you. I have just loved sharing it with you, and I hope that it will make a difference in your life. Thanks for coming.